Welcome to the American Relief Act video podcast series, part 2 on transportation, hosted on Government Technology Insider. I'm your host, Matt Langen. Transportation agencies are rich in data, but they're poor in information. The pandemic provided the catalyst to accelerate their digital transformation and embrace innovative ways to serve all their constituents to deliver safe, reliable, and ultimately modern solutions. And the underpinning for this digital transformation is really the growing adoption of hybrid cloud technologies. And as you've probably heard, help is on the way. The House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee recently passed a $547 billion package recently aimed at fixing the nation's roads and transit systems. From connected and autonomous vehicles and the recent surge in disruptive innovations, some of this funding can actually accelerate transportation technologies as we know it today. And today we're joined by Lou Gaskell, who's the Transportation Program Leader at Oracle, to discuss this topic further. And Lou, thanks for joining us today.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me, Matt.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's start really at the top when it comes to concerns and challenges. So what are transportation agency concerns and challenges, especially when it comes to delivering transportation projects?
Well, yeah, we'll probably need to frame it a little bit because transportation is very broad as people discover. You don't think about what it really means. And in terms of the context of our daily life, we poll people in the past. What are the top two things? Transportation is very high because it's very relevant. So transportation tends to be, we think of congestion, but there's other aspects in that area. So the different agencies would be tolling agencies, departments of transportation that run the highways, which you're most familiar with. There's also ports, airports, cities have their own transportation needs. The Metropolitan Planning Organization, or MPOs, transit authorities, where you get your license for the DMV. So it's pretty vast, really, the ecosystem, which covers really under transportation. So the needs are pretty great, but there seems to be a singular mandate. One is to do things reliably, do things safely. There's not a big revenue content to what they do. It's to provide a public service. So there are really big concerns about reducing congestion and in turn reducing incidents and deaths and fatalities.
Yeah, wow, Lou, that was great. So much to unpack there. I think you really nailed the entire, just the vastness of the ecosystem and the vastness of all the challenges. And that plays perfectly into my next question. So let's talk more about some of the trends and especially the key technologies that you can see being developed when it comes to addressing these a wide range of issues and challenges, right?
Yeah, it's very exciting. I've been in transportation over 20 years. It wasn't that exciting. There's a lot of systems and you talk to people. Uber came, Lyft came, Tesla, electric vehicles, self-driving cars, Google cars, mobility on demand, scooters, bike sharing, how do I park, flying cars. So, if you talk about the past 15 years, you'd see that curve go crazy in terms of technology, a lot of involvement, a lot of growth, lots of opportunities. So right now, when I started talking about smart cities and big data, people thought I was a little crazy. At the time, they really didn't quite click when I talked about analytics and data. There wasn't a big understanding. Now that they expect to see this exponential data growth from cars that produce terabytes of data a day, connecting different cities, trying to connect information in different systems. Now the talk is about artificial intelligence, machine learning, lots of sensors, lots of vehicles. And how do we connect all these? They're not tied to each other. Self-driving cars, well, self-driving means it doesn't connect to anything. Then we have something called connected vehicles, which is connected to everything. So there's a lot of concerns and a lot of trends about this growing data. And data can be either structured or unstructured, and there's a lot of it. And how do we handle it? What do we do with that? The biggest one I think you're going to see is the smartphone. And smartphone can be used a lot of different ways. So think in terms of a toll road. Well, the phone knows where you're at. You can start to use that for congestion. Use your phone as a payment method. You get on a bus, you can pay. Go through a toll road, you pay. Get a scooter to pay with that. Everybody wants it seamless. They want it contactless, especially now with COVID. And there's been a lot of new entrants to this market. Lots of small companies and big companies get very involved promoting the use of technology and getting companies to this. There's a lot of pilots. There's a lot of proof of concepts. There's a lot of new technologies. And I think some of the things we're seeing are, analytics, more real time, predictive things, geospatial. Tell me where my things are. Tell me how my things are. A highway, for instance, there's potholes. Tell me about the train. Tell me where my scooters are. Tell me that where everybody's piling the bikes up in the middle of a river in some big cities, and how do we automate this thing? Drones are another one. We're taking drones and we're trying to map things out for emergency situations. Tell me about the condition of my assets in remote areas. Augmented reality, wayfinding. You get to a complicated, say you're in New York City, you don't know you have to go to this level and this door, using augmented reality for wayfinding to show people around airports, get them there quickly. And then the status of assets. You want to walk up to a building, a train, a fleet vehicle, and you want to know the status of that immediately. So you're starting to see that type of technology being integrated to systems. And probably more importantly, as we call them, sandboxes. People, before this technology, they want to be able to play with it and see it and use it before they go buy it. And I think that's a lot of the way the technology is going. They're embracing it. There's certainly an understanding. They're seeing the trends. They want to be part of that. And even now, there's mandates now to move to a cloud environment. Get away from the technology. Focus on really what you're good at. Get back to your core values. Get rid of that IT part. Move things to the cloud. Start looking at platforms. Look at big data. And really, how do we get this data, tons of data, but how do you really turn it into action? Is one of the key things that we're starting to see. So
Yeah, wow.
Lots of trends.
Yeah, lots of major trends there. And I think the key point there you mentioned is really data, massive amounts of data. And you kind of hinted to this about the role the cloud will play when it comes to bringing this innovation to life, or bringing, data into action. And let's talk more about that. Let's dive in a little bit deeper. Tell us more about the role cloud will play, and modernization overall will help to bring this vision to reality.
Yeah, no, that's great. And we're really seeing this. We see the effects of, hey, I have a trip planner. I want to go from A to B. I want it to be seamless. I just want to use my phone. Tell me where to go. Tell me how much it'll cost. I want to set some parameters. I want the most equitable, the cheapest, the fastest, the least polluting. So there's lots of things that you can do really with that technology. But where does that data come from? It just doesn't exist. So integrating that becomes the issue, because it's not currently that way. When you look at a city, you might have LA, for instance, that has 128 agencies in 88 cities in LA County alone, not even including LA. How do you get that together? How do you get those groups together to make part of that decision? Well, big data is really part of that. Having everybody aggregate that data, one single truth of data, one pane of glass. The data is really coming fast for them, the volumes and the types, video analytics, audio. It's unstructured data. They can't handle that. They had a hard enough time dealing with just your regular structured database type materials. And what they really want to do is they want to stand it up and have it fail fast. Proof of concepts, pilots, first of a kind. They want to get in, try it. Cloud really makes it a lot easier to do that. And it offers them a chance to really look at the legacy systems. When you start to go back through this process, you're finding that if we're moving to the cloud, and many of these agencies have a mandate to move everything to the cloud. So we understand it's going to be a hybrid process of on-premise, hosted environments, and moving to the cloud. So they can pick different areas to move and do it very quickly. And that's one of the things they don't want to concern themselves with, is really the technology to do that. How hard is it? Do we have the funding to do that? And what's the benefit after? And really to create that platform, and a platform as a service, and building it really around the needs of agencies. Healthcare, education, they don't all have the same needs, but at the same time, they're going to be using the products. So really just building around a cloud that's designed for transportation is really key. We're seeing that in back offices for tolling industries, for fare management, for transit agencies. And the key needs are really, it has to be available. It's got to perform. It has to have high security. They want it to be part of their disaster recovery and business continuity plans. So they want to be able to stand this up very quickly. And I think that's where it helps. And one of the things we talk about is CAPS: cost, agility, autonomy, performance, security. Cost, obviously, we're very low cost compared to a lot of the competitors, very agile, just the nature of cloud, being able to stand it up, and moving Oracle to Oracle is obviously something we do very well. Autonomous, I don't want to touch it. I want it to take care of itself. I want to push the big easy button and have it perform. And having those performance metrics and the security, companies like Oracle, we can do security better than anybody else that takes it on premise. And we know that. So the performance has to be high. The cost has to be low. You want to be able to do more than ever now, and eliminate those human errors. That way you can focus on really having that. And part of that we're really seeing is being reactive, which most are, moving to proactive. And then part of that decision-making process, it's going to speed that up. You're going to have real-time data. It's going to be aggregated. It's going to be fused, and you can make those qualitative decisions. And that's really important when you're deciding on large sums of state and federal money. You have to be accountable for what you did. IT maintenance really gets rid of that, paper-based type solutions. And probably lastly is these agencies are very data rich, very information poor. So just having timely access to that consolidated data to understand what's going around them, the current impact, and really improving that customer service. So I think there's the opportunity which cloud really derives from is giving them those capabilities to really do that. Stand it up fast, see if that technology works, set the metrics, if it meets the business needs, and then look at the technology as almost secondary because it has to provide that to really be successful in the end for people to improve and really reduce congestion. So I think cloud can really help that. It eliminates some of the areas they're spending too much time, and they can focus on those core capabilities in transportation they're pretty good at, Matt.
That's awesome. What a great way to conclude this episode of the American Relief Act video podcast series, part 2 on transportation, hosted on Government Technology Insider, where Lou Gaskell, who's the transportation program leader at Oracle, provided some really deep dive and very interesting insights into how the cloud is driving innovation and modernization in the transportation arena today and well into the future. And Lou, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Matt.